In the words of my favorite YouTube podcaster, Joe Rogan, hello, freak bitches.
All right, I guess we're actually live.
Yeah, we got that out of the way. So, hello, everyone.
Hey, Dan.
David, how are you?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing just fantastic. It is your debut appearance on a live stream via Skype, so I'm very happy to have you here. And why don't we take a moment right at the top here for you to introduce yourself and give yourself a plug for your website?
Yeah, totally. So I'm David Golub. I'm a road geek and software engineer who lives on Long Island. And I'm the guy who does East Coast roads, where you can take a virtual drive down various major highways from Beckley, West Virginia, all the way up to Boston. So if you haven't done so already, go check it out, eastcoastroads.com.
And you are on Facebook as well at East Coast Roads, and we see you lurking in the background in a lot of other areas too. So,
yep, I'm on AA Roads as D Golub. So yeah.
All right, cool.
You getting an echo or just me?
What's that?
You hearing an echo or is it just me?
I'm not hearing anything. I'm good. Are you good?
I'm hearing myself echo back a few seconds later.
Yeah, well, that would be unfortunate. I wouldn't want to hear you twice either. Who else is hearing an echo? Is anybody else hearing one?
Doug Kerr just said he's hearing an echo.
Okay. One second. Well, there is a little bit of a delay.
You know what? Maybe I need to mute my YouTube so I'm not hearing stuff through both YouTube and Skype simultaneously. Let's see how that goes.
Well, that might help.
I'm not hearing the echo anymore. How about you?
I don't know. Let's ask the audience. Who wants to be a millionaire style?
I would like to phone a friend.
Yeah.
Maybe let's narrow it down to 50-50.
Yeah, right.
Mike Tantillo says no echo anymore.
Okay. Yeah, because we can't have an echo for the next 2 hours. That's going to be annoying as hell.
Yeah. Laura says no echo. Bill says it sounds better. So I think we're good. I think I just needed to mute my YouTube, and that's the trick.
All right, so it was your fault. Okay, very good.
Well, at least I got it fixed.
Okay, that's good. So tonight is going to be a bit less formal than last night. We're basically just going to wing it, and I'm going to give you guys a bit of a recap of my weekday live stream. We'll talk a little bit about the origins of it and why I've been doing it, and we'll show you some of my highlights over the past couple of weeks of doing the commute and everything. And we'll talk a little bit about where things are going from here. So I think the easiest way to do this would be to set up, just start playing some videos, and I'll talk over it as we go. Here's the video library that I amassed last week. And currently, as an essential person in the city of New York, I had to commute all the way down to southern Queens every day from up in the Hudson Valley. And that commute isn't very fun normally, but with traffic lightening up quite a bit because of the ban on non-essential personnel, they did give me an opportunity to take a look around at some areas of the city and see how the reductions in traffic were playing out on our major highways. And I have to say that the difference is very stark in a lot of areas. So we're going to give you guys sort of a recap of what things looked like, and I'll do the best I can to narrate things for you. And if you guys have questions that you want to bring up in the chat as we go, you're certainly more than welcome to do that. But let's jump in right away here. And if you're from New York, or you've driven around New York quite a bit, you know that this elevated section of the Gowanus Expressway is one of the heaviest traveled thoroughfares in the city. And this is the middle of weekday rush hour. And I should emphasize the fact that, yes, the bulk of peak traffic would be going in the opposite direction towards the Verrazano Bridge, but you should not be able to be traveling this fast, going towards Manhattan even, at this hour of the day, at like 4 o'clock.
Yeah, this is highly abnormal.
Yeah. So, and this is going to be a theme throughout the evening as I take you to different areas of the city, and maybe you guys have imagined in your mind what it's like under normal conditions, and then you'll watch something like this and you'll be like, wow, was this like Christmas morning or something like that? Like, no, this is a weekday afternoon, this is Friday afternoon, depending on what day it was that I was filming. But it's all very strange, And you, David, you don't commute into the city by car, right? You usually take the train.
Usually, yes. But right now, my company is on mandatory work from home. So right now, I'm not commuting into the city at all. I haven't been there in, I think, close to 3 weeks at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, was your company one of the first to go to the full mandatory work from home situation or schedule?
I don't know if we were one of the first, but we did it before the governor required it of everyone.
Oh, okay.
A little bit before. It was around the middle of the month.
Yeah.
They did a work from home exercise where they wanted everyone to make sure they had the appropriate technology and everything that they would need if we had to go work from home. It was on a Thursday. They had everyone work from home for 1 day as a trial period. And then at the end of the day, they told us, we're going mandatory work from home starting on Monday. Tomorrow, if you need to come into the office to get anything, come in, take it, and leave.
Okay.
Otherwise, if you don't need anything, don't come in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've been working from the office where I live in Mineola for the last almost 3 weeks now.
Well, you've been working out of your living room, basically, right?
Yeah.
But for what you do for a living, it's easier, I would think, for you to be able to work from home as opposed to, say, someone like me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we have someone on my team who lives in Texas, and we see him in person usually once or twice a year.
Okay.
And it works out fine. He's a great engineer and contributes a ton to the team. He's actually probably the most experienced engineer on the team. So, yeah. And we also, at my company, we have officially we have unlimited work from home days, so you can basically just take as many as you want. We have Wednesdays marked as no meeting day, so if people want to take a day for work from home day once a week, Wednesday's there to do it, and most people do take advantage of that.
I see. Okay.
So, yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, because when my company switched over to work from home, they did it obviously for office personnel, for people in the corporate office, stuff like that. But for field personnel, we obviously had no choice.
Yeah, there's not. I assume there's probably not much you can do from home.
No, not really.
Yeah.
We were issued letters from our HR department that basically said, they basically cleared us in the event that there was like a traffic stop or whatever.
Interesting. They're making traffic stops for those reasons.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, in case for whatever reason, I mean, I don't know that this is going on, but I have to feel like the fact that they went ahead and, took the step to issue us basically a permission slip
Yeah.
tells me that it's on the table or it's being enforced in the shadows.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it basically is a letter saying this person is an essential worker for this company, and if you have any questions, call HR.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I got that letter twice. I got it from the company that I left on Friday and the company I'm joining on tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
The
here's the Brooklyn Bridge, everybody, and as you can see, afternoon rush, you wouldn't know it.
yeah, definitely wouldn't know it.
No.
Um, so for anyone who cares, this is one of the New York City DOT bridges. It's actually, I think it's the oldest bridge over the East River. But it's maintained by the city DOT. It's not part of any state route or interstate or anything like that, despite being basically highway grade at this point.
Yeah, the city DOT bridges are what? The Brooklyn, Manhattan, Williamsburg, and Queensboro.
Yeah, Queensboro, I'm pretty sure, is maintained by the city DOT, but it does carry a state route number, namely New York 25.
Yeah,
Right. The thing about New York City is that once you're within the five boroughs, all state routes that aren't either interstates or parkways or expressways, anything that's not one of those is locally maintained by the New York City DOT.
Uh-huh.
The state DOT within New York City just does parkways and expressways, and that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this daily live stream that I started began on March 12th, and it was originally going to be just a one-off thing. And I titled the stream "The Coronavirus and the Commute" because I figured the commute would be hell, and I wouldn't mind, putting up a dash cam and having people follow along because I like the company. And I figured that I would be listening to a lot of news reports about what at the time on March 12th was a local outbreak of COVID-19 in New Rochelle, just up the road.
So just to interject for a second, that's the Manhattan Bridge that we just went over, and it'll be the Williamsburg Bridge coming up next.
That is correct, yeah. Manhattan's my favorite of the East River bridges, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this whole thing that is now becoming an everyday thing on weekdays really started as what was supposed to be a single stream for one day. And then hour by hour, from that point, things started to really escalate and things started to shut down. Governments started to take unprecedented measures. And then I realized that I really had something historic on my hands. And I felt it necessary to do my part to document the historical event. Not necessarily roads, but just to document the news coverage of it. And I felt that doing a daily afternoon drive live stream would be a way to integrate both the news aspect of it and also the traffic and roads aspect of it.
Yep.
So that's how it was born. It was born very innocently. I wasn't really thinking very far into the future with it, but we're now we're going to be starting our fourth week of Monday to Friday afternoon drive dash cam videos, and goodness knows where this is going. I mean, if March was as big a roller coaster as it was, I mean, what's April going to be like?
Yeah, we have no way of knowing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there are some positive signs, but it could also still get a whole lot worse.
Yeah, I mean, I try not to think about all those scenarios that are floating around. Like, obviously, the only thing that I can control is what I do and the part that I have to play in all of this. And one of the things that I thought was very important about doing a daily stream was giving people a lot of that unscripted, programming that has gone away because of quarantines and whatnot. You don't have sports going on anymore. You don't have like live TV shows going on anymore. There's a real void in the entertainment side of our lives. And so I feel like if I can tap into that a little bit and give people something to look forward to every day, it's worth giving it a shot.
Yeah, definitely.
And so that's the reason why I've turned this into a daily thing. We now have the webinars every Saturday, and we now have like freestyle live events like this every Sunday, just to give people some sense of structure and schedule in their lives, minus watching the Baltimore Orioles lose 120 games. Sorry to all my Maryland friends out there. But you know what I mean, though, right? Like it's you have this immediate void that opens up, and you have to fill it with something.
Yeah.
So why not experiment with stuff like this?
And those of us who are work from home are getting plenty of extra time with the time we're not spending on our commutes. So, yeah.
That's true. Yep. By the way, this is the first time I took this exit ramp.
42nd Street?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never had to go this way before.
I was off that exit once, but I wasn't driving. It was back when I was in college at one point. I think I had been in Brooklyn, if I recall correctly, and my parents took me back to Grand Central to get on the train to go back to New Haven.
I see.
Yep.
Oh, that was back in your Yale days?
Yep.
Okay.
Decade ago or more.
I'll bet you
back a while.
All right, so I think that was a good intro, right?
Yep.
I gotta show you guys 8th Avenue because that was insane.
Probably gonna go right by my office. That was, I think, the one I was watching from Thursday, right?
I think you're right. This was Thursday.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to start on... Let me skip ahead a little bit here. Okay, so we just left Canal Street, and we just got onto Hudson Street northbound, which in a little bit becomes 8th Avenue. And
yep, they all change names when you get further downtown.
I think, I think once you pass Houston Street, right? That's when a lot of the names switch over.
A lot of them, yeah, but exactly where depends upon which street.
Yeah.
First and second definitely switch over there. Fifth ends at Washington Square. Sixth goes all the way down to the Holland Tunnel.
Okay.
And it is still called 6th Avenue or Avenue of the Americas, whichever name you want to use for it. 7th and 8th and 9th, they changed somewhere around Houston. I'm not sure if it's exactly at Houston. And then 10th merges with the West Side Highway around 14th Street, I believe it is. Yeah.
this guy's an idiot. Yeah, well, the crazy drivers were still out, that's for sure.
Well, it's been nice drive in that one.
Yeah. But take note of the fact that there's no traffic. There's nobody on the sidewalks.
Yep.
And this is, again, afternoon rush hour. So you would expect to be, surrounded by a mass of humanity.
Yeah.
But
for anyone who's not familiar with Manhattan, this is completely abnormal. Maybe if you came at 6 a.m. on a weekend, maybe you'd see this. But otherwise, nope.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really shocking to me, because what's interesting? The difference between this scene and a Sunday morning is that on a Sunday morning you would still have all the cabs and the Uber drivers out.
True.
And you don't even have those guys. Those guys have been shut down.
Right.
Predominantly. So
yeah.
This is really the least amount of traffic that you've seen in Manhattan in many years.
Yeah. I mean, you look at what the traffic is like out on Long Island, and it's even more deserted. Last week, there was one day after work, I took a walk down from where I live down Mineola Boulevard to Jericho Turnpike, and which is about a mile round trip, past a grand total of one other pedestrian the whole way.
Yeah.
And practicing social distancing, very easy, because if someone's coming the other way on the sidewalk, just go out into the street and walk on the shoulder, because there's no one parked there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even, Old Country Road, which for those who aren't familiar with it, is one of the most major roads in Nassau County, deserted.
Jeez. Yeah, it's got to be very disorienting, right?
It is a little bit. I mean, like last weekend, I took a trip up to Bayville and took kind of a zigzag route coming home, where I crossed the Glen Cove Oyster Bay Peninsula over to the northern end of 107, and then took 107 down to Hicksville and then back on Old Country Road. And taking Old Country Road through, the major shopping area where Roosevelt Field and all the shopping around it is, generally that would be one of the busiest areas in Nassau County. Went through that whole area. I think I stopped at one traffic light and that was it. Just zipped right through.
Yeah.
It feels a little post-apocalyptic, but at the same time, it's rather enjoyable driving under those conditions.
Yeah, ever since I've been able to drive, I have avoided driving the Manhattan local streets at all costs.
Yeah, same here.
And this is the first time I've ever taken my video camera out on these streets.
Yeah.
So it took an apocalyptic event like this to make me think that this was a good idea.
Yeah.
And I've filmed city streets in other cities too. I was in Chicago and I did a lot of streets there. I did streets in San Francisco. I did streets in Honolulu.
Yeah, I mean, within the United States, nothing is like Manhattan.
No, it's a completely different animal. Yeah.
It's just its own thing. Yeah, I've got a decent amount of coverage of Manhattan streets and some of the streets in the other boroughs as well, for that matter, on my site. But the Manhattan street coverage is basically all snapped from the sidewalks.
Yeah.
So, especially since under normal traffic conditions, you can get better pictures from there anyway.
Right, yeah.
But, so for anyone who's wondering, in this area here, we're about to cross 34th Street. Penn Station is here, so that's one of the two major train stations in New York City. It's the one for Long Island Railroad, New Jersey Transit, and Amtrak, and I commute through here every day.
Yep, Madison Square Garden is on the right, and
Yep.
the Farley Post Office is on the left.
Yeah, and that's where the new West End concourse for the Long Island Railroad is. So on my daily commute, when it's not state of emergency, I generally come out on the left side here and I walk up right where we're going, and I'll tell you when we're going to pass my office in a little under a mile.
Your office is on 8th Avenue somewhere.
It's on 50th between 8th and Broadway.
Okay.
So it's not right on 8th Avenue, but it's right off of here.
Okay.
So, as I said, this is my daily commute.
Very nice.
This is all very familiar to me.
Do you miss it?
Not all that much, believe it or not. I actually have been kind of enjoying my work from home situation.
Yeah, I mean, if the choice is work from home or fight your way through Penn Station every day, I'm sure a lot of people would pick work from home.
Yeah. So, he doesn't go through Penn Station, but actually, I have to say, having previously lived in Manhattan where I dealt with the subway every day, LIRR is so much nicer.
You think
It's
so?
just night and day. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It's so much more orderly. Yeah. It's just a completely better experience. I mean, you can get a seat. It's not as noisy. Yeah, you got the picture.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was 46th Street. So 4 more blocks and we'll be coming on where I would be making a right turn.
And we are cruising up the west side of Manhattan.
Yep.
Getting every green light.
Well, some yellows here, but mostly green.
Yeah. Well, that's another pattern that you'll see develop tonight, is that the avenues, if you can time it just right, there's so little traffic that you can go 50 to 100 blocks in no time at all.
Yup.
So that's really what we're going to see here. When we go over to 6th Avenue, we'll see the same thing. 7th Avenue, 5th Avenue. The story's going to play out pretty much the same way.
Yep. So now we're coming up on the end of 8th Avenue. So you'll see, you can't quite see it all that clearly yet, but there's an overhead green sign up in the distance there for Central Park West and Central Park South. That's for Columbus Circle, which is a big traffic circle at the end of 8th Avenue. And if you continue north beyond 8th Avenue, beyond Columbus Circle, in the same place where 8th Avenue is, that's Central Park West, which is called that for, I think, relatively obvious reason that it runs along the west side of Central Park.
Yeah.
And that's also where Broadway becomes a two-way street.
Right. Broadway cuts the diagonal through here.
Right.
And becomes a two-way street as it goes off to the northwest.
Yeah, and then north of here, it does a little bit more diagonaling, but for a while, it's essentially 10.5th Avenue, and then West End Avenue, which is 11th, merges into it up at 106th Street, and from then on, Broadway basically holds the place of 11th Avenue.
Okay.
And it continues all the way up by the George Washington Bridge. It takes on the US 9 designation, and if you follow that, it will take you all the way to Canada.
That is true.
Yup.
And you'll go right by my house on the way.
That's right.
Yep. All right, I'm going to pause this for a second. Why don't you stand by, because I'm trying to get somebody else to call in here. Everybody gets to look at my Skype contacts here for the moment. Let me see if this guy will answer.
Hello?
Hello?
Hey, how you doing, Dan?
Hey,
All I see is I see the freeway, the roadwaywiz logo, but I don't see anything else.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay.
There's nothing to see here.
Okay. Very good.
Dave, you're still here, right? Did we lose Dave? Uh-oh. Hey, there's a big head. All right. Did I just hang up on Dave by accident? I hope not. All right, you know what? Why don't I'm going to hang up on you real quick, and I'm going to see if I can get you both back on the line, all right?
That's fine, thanks.
I'll bring you right back.
Bye.
Okay. Yeah, I knew that was not a good idea. So, let's do this. I'm going to add this guy, and I'm going to add this guy. All right? Now, let's do this call. Hello. All right.
You got me.
All right. C is back. CPZ, you need to mute something on your end. We're getting an echo.
Okay. All right. Let me see. I think I can do that. Muting now.
Okay. All right. That sounds better. Dave, you're still with us, right? All right, where did Dave go? Oh, hello. Yeah. We're trying to get everybody back up here so that we can keep going.
Great, I'm on the three-way call now, so.
All right, I got you back. Do I have CPZ still?
Yes, you do.
You do? You are here? Okay, very good. All right, so then there were 3 people. CPZ, it's good to have you. Join us.
Thanks. Sorry, I've been busy with other things.
That's okay. You're joining us from where? It's somewhere in Maryland?
Yeah, I'm in Silver Spring.
Very nice.
Actually at my dad's house because I've been spending much of the day with him.
Okay, cool. Is your dad going to be an expert in New York City local streets by the end of the night, or?
Matt, he's upstairs. I'm downstairs. He's having. This has not been a good weekend for him, and so I don't want to bother him with this at this point.
Okay.
Unfortunately, he might otherwise be interested because when he first set foot in this country, Brooklyn was the first place that he set. But he actually set foot on U.S. territory in Brooklyn because Ellis Island wasn't operating by the time that he got here. So he certainly knows New York City somewhat well, but probably not today.
Okay, very fair. So we just did a quick summation of the Gowanus Expressway, the Brooklyn Bridge, FDR Drive, and we just did a video of 8th Avenue. So let's jump over now to the east end of Central Park, and we're going to take a look at 5th Avenue. It's not officially known as Central Park East, is that right?
No one would use that term.
Okay.
There's Central Park West, South, and North, but no East.
Really? Is there some reason why East is neglected?
I would guess because the 5th Avenue name continues in both directions from it.
Okay.
Whereas Central Park South ends at Columbus Circle. Central Park North, well, it's duly known as both Central Park North and West 110th Street, but it changes names on both sides of the park. On the east side of the park, it becomes East 110th Street, and on the west side of the park, it becomes Cathedral Parkway, which is also duly signed with West 110th Street. And that used to be the cross street where I used to live.
Okay. So it's going to be renamed David Golub Parkway at some point.
That would be
I
kind
knew
of
I could get a laugh out of you. Okay. Yeah, because I know that I've seen signs that say Central Park East, but I know that most people, or at least I think everybody that I've talked to who is a local, only calls it Fifth Avenue.
I'd be curious where those signs are, because I don't think I've ever seen them.
There was one on 110th that I saw.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know if that's
because I've been through that intersection. I don't recall seeing it.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe it's new.
I mean, it does look like a new sign, but yeah.
Maybe they added it very recently.
Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, here's the Guggenheim Museum on the left. We're going past Museum Row, and the Met is going to be up ahead on the right.
Yep.
And I gotta tell you, it was very weird to see the Met without any people coming and going, and completely closed.
Yeah.
But you could say that about a lot of places in the city, not just the Met.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
In the Roadway Wiz logo, or do I need to hit something else, or what are we just talking?
What now? What happened?
I'm seeing just the Roadway Wiz logo in the Dan window, and I'm seeing David on the left, which is fine. But am I missing something? It kind of sounds.
No, you're good.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Do you have the stream open?
No, I do not. Where is that? Is that something else?
Yeah, no. So our Skype call is being broadcast at the YouTube link, so you can open up the YouTube for the stream, and you can follow along on the stream so that you know what the heck we're looking at.
Okay. All right. Let me get.
Just when you do so, make sure to mute your sound in YouTube, because otherwise we'll wind up with an echo.
No, I got you.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I have my laptop computer here, which will work well for YouTube.
Yeah.
Now look at Broadway Wiz here as well.
Well, yeah, I posted a link to the stream on my personal page on Facebook also.
Okay.
So you can go there.
Is it the Coronavirus and Commute series? Is that where we are?
It is. Yep.
Okay. I want to make sure this is
somebody's got to mute their sound.
Got it.
CPZ, you got to mute something.
Just muted the YouTube, and I'm going to mute Skype.
Okay.
Yeah, muting YouTube did the trick for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so as far as the museums go, we passed the Met. The other probably most famous museum in New York, the Museum of Natural History, is on the other side of Central Park, on Central Park West.
Yeah. That's true. I did go right past that when I filmed Central Park West, but I didn't remember that it was there.
Yeah.
I've been there a couple of times, but
actually, I don't know if we're going to do the transverses later because of this, as part of this, but the 79th Street transverse, it actually comes out on the west side, not at 79th Street, but at 81st Street. And the reason why is because there's a block of 79th Street and 78th and 80th, for that matter, that's missing because the museum takes the place of where that block of those streets would be.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so the 79th Street transverse, it comes out at 81st Street, and then there's one block of 81st Street on the north side of the museum that is two-way, even though all the rest of 81st is one-way, and that puts you out at Columbus Avenue, and you're forced to make a left turn there, and then they have an oversized street name sign at 79th Street, just one, so that people know, okay, that's where you make the turn to stay on it.
I see.
Yep.
Well, you can see on the right, the people that are out and about are socially distancing themselves.
Which is very good.
Yeah. It looks like, I mean, I'm seeing all these buses, so it looks to me like they're keeping most of the bus surface in place as is.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of, the transit that's in place is intended for use by essential workers, and that's it. I'm on the mailing list for the Long Island Railroad, and they've sent emails saying basically, the trains are here if you're essential and you need to get in, otherwise please don't use them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I was very impressed driving down Fifth Avenue in this section of town. We have 2 bus lanes on the right.
Yep.
You get a double bus lane, and you have 3 general lanes to the left.
Yeah, New York City's been doing a lot in recent years with adding bus lanes to try to really get things moving there.
Yeah, I mean, they basically turned 14th Street into a busway, right?
Yeah, I actually haven't been down there much since they did it. But on 1st and 2nd Avenues, they have the select bus service. 5th Avenue makes sense because there isn't really a subway near here. You got to go either over to Lexington Avenue or all the way over to the west side to Central Park West.
Okay.
So the east side does not have particularly good subway service. It's until the 2nd Avenue subway happened, it was just one line, the 456 on Lexington Avenue, and that was it.
Yeah. Right.
So if you weren't near there, then you had to walk all the way over to Lexington Avenue. Actually, I remember the day that my nephew was born, my sister was at a hospital all the way over by the East River. I was living on the Morningside Heights, not technically Upper West Side at the time. So it was not the easiest place to get to. I went there, I took a crosstown bus, which took forever. So coming back, I decided to take the subway. So in order to do that, what I had to do was walk from the East River all the way up to Lexington Avenue, go downtown to Grand Central, get on the shuttle from there to go over to Times Square, and then first head back uptown. So there's really no good way to make that trip.
Yeah, that's one of those black holes of New York City transit, where there's no good option available.
Right. I mean, it would be nice if they had, a 96th Street shuttle or something like that, but no such luck. So once you're above, let's say 59th Street or so, really the only way to go across town is either to take the bus or to go through a very circuitous route.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so that was 5th Avenue. Now I'll preface this next video by saying that probably the most eerie experience I had driving through Manhattan was driving through Times Square, without anybody on the sidewalks or anybody else on the road. And I was able to accomplish that by following 7th Avenue, which is this video, which begins at Central Park South. And this video is going to take us all the way from Central Park South down to basically the doorstep of the World Trade Center. And we do it all in 10 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. Again, you couldn't do this even on a Sunday. But because everything is shut down, yeah, it's just crazy.
The only way you could hope to make that trip in that amount of time would be on the subway. And in practice, with the time you'd spend waiting for the subway to come, you wouldn't make it in that time.
No, yeah. But even with the express trains making stops, you wouldn't do it in 10 minutes.
No. Maybe the train ride itself might be 10 minutes, but you'd have to wait a while for the train to come. So the trip overall would be more than 10 minutes.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and then
when I do my daily commute, I walk going there and then take the subway coming back to get to Penn Station. And I probably spend more time waiting for the train to come than I do actually on the train most days.
Has Subway reduced its headways because of all this stuff? It looks like, as you commented before, the buses are still there, and they look to be running a lot of buses. But has Subway service been reduced at all?
As far as I know, it's still running.
Yeah, the subways are still running. They have reduced what they call duplicate service. So lines that, like different lines that run on the same track, they've eliminated the duplicate line. So for example, up in Astoria where you have the N and the W running on the same track, making the same stops, they've eliminated the W service altogether. So you have to take the N regardless. So it's basically eliminating the redundancies in the system by taking trains off of the tracks, but not eliminating service to all of the stops in the system.
Did you guys, the Wall Street Journal article I put on NYC roads on Facebook about this exact subject?
Yep, I read it earlier.
Did you see the graphs?
Yeah, it's not entirely surprising, but I assume I don't think that this is a long-term trend. I think this is just it'll revert back to the way that it used to be once we're past this crisis.
I think you're absolutely right about that. It is remarkable, nonetheless, the impact, which will form almost like a free throw. If anybody wants to talk about what Manhattan or a lot of other places, including down here in the D.C. area, what the system looks like at free flow. Well, we now know what it looks like at free flow, and I don't mean at 3 o'clock in the morning either. And it's remarkable that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean this is lighter than 3 a.m. on a weekday
You're
or
right.
weekend traffic. Yeah, because the thing that I was telling David earlier is that the main difference is that under normal conditions, you would still have all the taxis and the Ubers out. And you don't have that anymore. So it is literally bare minimum number of vehicles on the streets now.
Yep. I think our echo may be back.
Somebody's echo's back?
Oh no, maybe not.
Yeah, I don't hear an echo.
I heard my voice echo once, but that was all. So I don't know what happened there.
Well, I only want to ever hear your voice once as it is, so I hope it doesn't come back.
Yeah.
How does that affect Williamsburg Bridge and Manhattan Bridge that both carry multiple lines on the same bridge? Well, the Williamsburg carries the J and the Z, and I believe they eliminated one or the other of those lines. I think they eliminated the Z, I want to say, because that's a duplicate line that runs with the J.
Yeah, those two lines run on this, I'm pretty sure on the same track the entire length. I think one's express and one's local.
Yeah, and that's what they mean by duplicate service. It's taking a line out of service without taking stations out of service.
And some of those things they do on the weekends anyway. Like, I believe the M train doesn't run on weekends, if I recall correctly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know that they changed up their schedules, and of course they love to do their weekend maintenance and shutdowns of lines and stations for that purpose, but...
Oh, yeah. There are plenty of times when this line or that line may not be running on the weekend.
Yeah. By the way, look at this view of the World Trade Center up ahead.
Yep.
I never knew this was here. I never had come out this way.
You mean that you could see it from here?
Yeah, I've never been on 7th Avenue down this way before, no.
Yeah. Well, eventually this is going to turn into Varick Street, and we'll go by the Holland Tunnel.
Right, yep.
Yeah.
Are the queues to get into Holland and Lincoln especially, have they kind of gone away, or are they still there?
No, the Lincoln on Friday afternoon was empty.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe I'll show you that video next.
Okay.
But yeah, like, no delays in the morning at the inbound side, and this guy's a fucking idiot. And in the afternoon, basically the same deal. I mean, you don't have...
Stupid motorcycle.
Yeah, and you don't have any delays at the bridges and tunnels in the afternoon, so... It's bizarre. You know, like on a Friday afternoon, I'm used to listening to the traffic report and saying, oh, there's 60 to 90 minute delays at the outbound Lincoln Tunnel, and you can just zip right through there, at least at this time. So. Yeah,
you'd definitely rather be on the train if you're making that trip at those hours.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. Like, I don't know how... Like, if you're someone who lives in Bergen County, for example, and you have to drive to Lower Manhattan every day, I don't know how you could possibly do that without wanting to kill someone before too long.
Yeah, I hear you.
Like, it's just, you know what I mean? Like, it just sounds like such a terrible thing to have to put yourself through.
Oh, yeah. So this here is the entrance to the Holland Tunnel.
Yeah. And by the way, we still haven't had a red light. I'm still waiting for a red light.
Yeah.
But, you know, when there's nobody on the street except suicidal motorcycles, you can make this trip very easily.
That you can.
And here's where the Holland comes out on the right with all those ramps.
Yeah, those green signs. It's this circular one-way expressway, if you will, that has 5 exits off of it that put you on various streets in this area.
Yep.
Then I know exactly what you're talking about now.
And then that's the end of I-78.
Yeah.
That's the extent of it in New York.
That's it, man. Obviously, we know it was meant to go a little bit further than that, but...
well, quite a bit further.
Build.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, they did build some other stuff, but...
Yeah, but it's not...
doesn't have the 78 designation on it anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
Because the Clearview Expressway used to be 78, but when it became clear that it was never going to connect with the rest of 78, they made it 295.
Right.
So, which is what it's been for as long as I've been here.
Well, I think they made the change in, what, the early 70s?
Yeah, which is before my time.
Over to 295, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, about the same. Ironically, it was done about the same time, if my memory serves correctly, as when in D.C. and Northern Virginia, when what was once 95 was re-signed as I-395, when it became clear that 95 was never going to leave downtown D.C. and head north out to Maryland, that had been canceled, and so they renumbered it 395. Similar deal.
Yeah.
So 395 was originally part of 95, or supposed to be part of 95?
all of what is now signed as 395 in Virginia and D.C. was signed as I-95 up until, I don't know, 73, 74, sometime in there. And then, I mean, there was, tremendous opposition to it in D.C. and in Maryland, especially in parts of Maryland that weren't even really actually close to where 95 was going to run, like the city of Tacoma Park, which was not, there was not an I-95 Tacoma Park, yet the Atlantic opposition to it was very much centered there.
And I guess at that time, there was no 95, 495 multiplex yet.
That came about after, when they moved 95. At first, the states did the right thing and removed the 495 shields, and then politicians got involved saying it was confusing, and so they were basically forced to sign it as 495 and 95, which, in my opinion, it adds more confusion. But that's what they, and that's the way it is mostly to this day. But if you look in the state highway logs, it's all 95. There's no mention of 495 in the highway logs at all.
Oh, so you're saying that the multiplex should have been just 95?
Correct. That's correct. And it is.
Okay,
I mean, if
that
you
makes sense, I guess.
Definitions in both Virginia and Maryland, I don't know about the tiny little piece of it that's in D.C., but the legal definition of it in Maryland and Virginia is 95, and the 495 is kind of just a cosmetic, it's there and it's signed, but it's not, the states don't pay much attention to it, and they sign it because they were told to. So.
Well, you were mentioning the Lincoln Tunnel before, so here's your outbound Friday afternoon trip through the tunnel. We just got on the main access to the tunnel from 10th Avenue, which is usually backed up all the way behind us, about 50 blocks.
Right.
And it's just me and one other dude trying to get in the tunnel on Friday at 5 o'clock.
Wow.
Isn't this something? This is crazy.
The only concern I have with this, it kind of gets to the point that's been discussed about lower traffic volumes, is can the Port Authority cops stop, somebody who's not supposed to be coming in there when the traffic is this light? And I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, I don't, everybody talks about these quarantines and whatnot, and my first thought is, how the hell would you enforce it?
I don't think you can, and I think they're maybe legally dubious anyway. At least that's my guess, is that there might be some legal, that the federal courts might not look kindly on that anyway.
Yeah, and the other thing is that, New Jersey is a key piece of the New York metropolitan area anyway, so you can't shut down interstate travel.
No.
It's certainly not in this area.
No.
Same thing down in the D.C. area. You couldn't shut down travel between Maryland and Virginia.
Yeah.
I mean, you can discourage it, which is what the states have done, which I have no problem with. I have not set foot in D.C. since we were told at work to work from home using our computers, which has actually worked out for us at least remarkably well.
Way to change lanes in the tunnel there.
Oh yeah, I was in full I don't give a you-know-what mode. There's nobody else in the tunnel. It's just me and a couple of buses. Like, who cares?
I don't know out here, but I've been told, I've never verified this because I don't really I try not to cross that double white line unless there's a very good reason to do so. But supposedly on the MBTA tunnels in Baltimore, they do monitor them remotely, and if they see you crossing it, and if they have a cop at the portal, they will stop you and give you a ticket. Now, I do see them sometimes sitting at the portals in both directions, and maybe they're kind of fishing for that, for somebody that they know has crossed a double white line, but I don't know that with absolute certainty.
Yeah.
Interesting.
As far as the tunnel is concerned, the center tube has routinely been closed during this time.
Okay.
The center tube, of course, is the reversible tube for peak flow. Now, there was a situation earlier in the week where there was a fire in one of the tubes. They opened up the center tube for whatever direction was impacted. And once they did that, traffic really thinned out quite a bit. But the center tube has kind of just been sitting there.
Mm.
most of the time.
Yeah, so now here we're in New Jersey. This is the Helix, which is essentially the freeway version of a switchback to get us up the Palisades to higher ground from where the tunnel lets out.
First time I ever came to New York was by Trailways bus was coming down, what is now, I guess, New Jersey 495, and then around the Helix and ultimately into the Port Authority bus terminal, which was less crowded then than it is now. But
so yeah, I made back when I was living in Manhattan. I made many day trips where I was going in and out on buses right through here.
Now, of course, you may not remember Trailways, but Trailways was once a pretty big. They were to some extent a rival of Greyhound, and then for reasons that I can't explain, Trailways went away. Now there's still Peter Pan Trailways, and there's some other companies that use Trailways in their company name, but it's not the Trailway system of old.
Right. There's Mart's Trailways that I took once that'll take you out to Pennsylvania, to the Poconos, Scranton, that kind of area.
March runs a lot of the commuter bus service in the D.C. area from both Virginia and Maryland, and that's I think they're based in Pennsylvania, but I don't know that for certain.
Yeah, well, that's where you can take them to from here. So as one of you had said earlier, this is New Jersey 495, so numbered as an interstate, but it's a state route. If things had been done as originally planned, there would have been an expressway across Manhattan connecting the Midtown Tunnel to the Lincoln Tunnel. So this would have been contiguous with the 495, that's the Midtown Tunnel and the Long Island Expressway. And you would have been able to go from... What'd you say?
Go ahead.
You would have been able to go, continuous expressway from the New Jersey Turnpike all the way out to Riverhead. Or if they had gone as far as some of the things we're talking about, they would have even extended it out the North Fork of Long Island and then across Long Island Sound to Rhode Island, where it would have hooked into I-95, which is where you get the 4 in 495, that it's an even first digit of the 3-digit interstate, indicating a loop rather than a spar.
Right, yeah.
That all makes sense. I mean, the thing about it is knowing how constrained not only the Lincoln Tunnel is, but also the Queens Midtown. How in the heck you would, if you had had that connection, those would have been even more overwhelmed. If they stayed in their current configurations, they would have been even more overwhelmed with traffic than they are today. And that comes up on AA roads, I think, by people that don't know much about the New York area. That's one of the things they talk about sometimes. Just like I-95 through D.C., where I've tried to politely explain, it's a great idea, but you know what, it's not going to happen. And I think that probably the same thing holds true for a revived I-495 from the Turnpike. To, I guess, somewhere in theory could tie into the Long Island Expressway somewhere in Queens, but I don't see that necessarily ever happening. I mean, it would have to be very deep. It have to be bored. It have to be a lot of money. And no, it's and I don't think New York City would be too enthused about it anyway. Even if it's bored, where it's not really having much surface impact, I still think there'd be opposition. So,
would be nice to have it, but
in an ideal world, I'm sure we would have it, but alas, we do not live in an ideal world. Anyway, here is Park Avenue, which is one of my favorite city streets in Manhattan. Again, there's nobody out and about. This video is actually the first time that I had ever driven through the Park Avenue Tunnel, which is what we're going to travel through here shortly. David, the Park Avenue Tunnel was originally a rail tunnel, right?
I don't know. That it could be. That's news to me.
I think it was.
I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, it was built. It was not a subway tunnel, but it was for one of the lines that was coming down Park Avenue prior to Grand Central Terminal being a thing, I think.
Well, I guess that kind of makes sense because once you get north of Grand Central Terminal, the Metro North tracks go under Park Avenue, and then when you get north of 97th Street, they come up from underground, and Park Avenue essentially becomes a pair of service roads on either side of the tracks.
Right.
So if those tracks extended further south, then yeah, I could definitely see how they could have used this tunnel.
Yeah, Josh says it was the New York Central. So that makes sense, okay. And the line went as far down as City Hall. So what was left of this tunnel was repurposed for through traffic on Park Avenue that was going to bypass several blocks through Midtown. And when you get out the other side of this tunnel, which is currently still being retrofitted, you end up at the footsteps of Grand Central, and then this roadway elevates to go around the terminal building, as we'll see in a couple of minutes.
Yeah. There's also another tunnel over on First Avenue as well.
Is there? Is it similar to this one?
I'm trying to think whether I've ever actually been through it, but I've walked by it, and yeah, it'll take you under part of First Avenue, over near the UN.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there are two of these in Manhattan.
That's interesting. So yeah, at 40th Street, you come out of the tunnel, and now you're on the viaduct, which comes up to the second level of Grand Central, and then it splits to go around the building, which is what we're going to do here. And again, I politely remind you people that this is rush hour on a weekday, and it's not supposed to be this quiet.
Right.
But again, this was the first time I brought a video camera out this way, so I figured, why not? You know, I'll add some stuff to my video catalog while I'm here. Don't mind if I do.
I've seen this.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead. That's fine.
I was just going to say also, I'll give a little plug just for Grand Central Terminal as just being a very nice place to travel through. As I was saying earlier, I used to take Metro North on a fairly regular basis when I was in college to go back and forth between Long Island and New Haven, Connecticut, and going through Grand Central was one of the most fun parts of the trip.
Yeah, I guess having that east side access would have been nice in those days, wouldn't it?
It very much would have, yeah, but we still don't have it. We're getting close, but
right.
Yeah,
it definitely was not a thing back when I was in college. In order to make that transfer between Penn Station and Grand Central, you actually have to take two different subways. So a lot of the time, I would just walk it.
Mm.
Yeah, I could see how walking would be a better option.
Yeah.
You know?
So if the weather permitted, that was usually what I did.
Yeah. All right, so this is going to be a 6th Avenue video. And you will also see it signed as Avenue of the Americas. I personally just call it 6th Avenue because it's a bunch fewer syllables for my teeth to pronounce.
You and everyone else.
Yeah, so let's just cut to the chase and call it 6th Avenue.
So if you look at the address of a building on 6th Avenue, it's, whatever number Avenue of the Americas, and if you're a New Yorker, you'll basically know that that's 6th Avenue, but everyone just calls it 6th Avenue. And if you look at places where they have oversized street name signs that were installed, within the last decade, well, at this point, it's coming up on 2 decades that there have been oversized street name signs. But the ones at 6th Avenue, they all say 6th Avenue. They don't say Avenue of the Americas. It's only on the small street signs on the traffic light poles where you might see it.
Okay. Do you know where the Avenue of the Americas name came from?
No, I don't. I mean, it's something that, for me, was kind of just a fact of life for almost as long as I can remember. The company where my father used to work when I was a kid, Arthur Anderson, their office was on 6th Avenue, so the address was Avenue of the Americas.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, here's Radio
So-
City on the right. Rockefeller
Yep.
Center is off to the right also.
1 block over at 5th Avenue, yeah. So the big Christmas tree, that's where you'll see it.
And there's nobody to go visit it today.
No. There's also over by where the Christmas tree is, there's also a Lego store for anyone who's interested in that.
Yeah.
Huge Lego store that tends to be very crowded, but nonetheless, there's a Lego store there.
Well, if they had stayed open, I'm sure you'd have the store to yourself right now.
I can't imagine they're open.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so either.
Although I did hear that this place GameStop, they apparently needed to be told that they weren't essential.
Right.
I think I remember that.
Because, God forbid people should have to go without buying new video games in person.
Right.
I know.
But the one thing I'd like to do in terms of Lego is actually go to the original Legoland in Denmark. That's kind of a bucket of mine. I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
There's going to be a Legoland opening in New York. Well, it's supposed to be this year. We'll see what the coronavirus does or doesn't do for that.
Yeah. Is there one in Florida too, or maybe in California? If there's
Just
some
California, I think it is, yeah.
I had to go with one in Denmark. There are several road geek things I like to see in Denmark. Obviously, Belt Bridge and the bridge tunnel, and then who knows? Wait a few more years. That very long tunnel across the Femern channel, which will connect eastern Denmark to northern Germany with one long highway and railroad tunnel, and that might become the longest immersed tube tunnel in the world. I'm not certain about that, but
Wow.
Wow. So when you're in Denmark, can you understand the language there, or is it too different from Swedish to be mutually intelligible?
it's weird. I have difficulty comprehending spoken Danish. I can read Danish without much difficulty at all, but spoken Danish is tough. Now, if you talk to a Dane and they know that you speak Swedish, they can actually modify. They can modify the way that they talk a little bit to make it easier for Swedish speakers to understand. So it's not an entirely lost cause. But strangely, reading a newspaper in Danish or reading Danish street signs, no problem at all. I understand almost every word with no difficulty. There's a few things that are a little different, but not much. For some reason, the Danes call a streetcar is called a trick, T-R-I-K-K. Now, where the heck they ever came up with that, I don't know. But whereas the Swedish name is much more, is much more like analogous to the English streetcar, so there are some things like that. And they also call a car in Danish is usually called a vogn, V-O-G-N, or wagon. And that's just the name that they use there. And so, but again, that's a fatal problem. So,
Yeah, I think that's often a lot of the case with similar sounding languages. You're going to be coming into my old neighborhood soon.
I was just going to say, we're now hanging out on Broadway.
Yep. Yeah, going to be going right by Columbia. Yeah, I have some albums by the singer Josh Groban, and a decent fraction of his songs are in Italian, which I don't speak, but I do speak French to some degree. And if I look at the transcriptions in writing, there's a lot of words that I can figure out by similarity to French words that mean the same thing.
we'll have some of that. Now, the other thing that speaking of French, that Danish uses, the Swedish doesn't. Danish uses basically the same numbering and time as French and is baffling to those who don't understand it.
In the sense of 420s and that sort of thing?
Exactly. Danish for some reason uses that. That's difficult if you're not used to it.
Wait, is this Broadway or is this Amsterdam Avenue?
I have it in my catalog as Broadway.
This looks like Amsterdam.
It could very well be Amsterdam because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But I have it written as Broadway. So somewhere along the way I thought I was on Broadway at this point.
Yeah. This looks like Amsterdam, that overpass there. So we're going by Columbia University, which is my other alma mater. And that pedestrian, it's a pedestrian overpass, and it connects the main campus on the right to the law school over on the left.
Okay. And this overpass crosses Amsterdam Avenue, you're saying?
Yep, there's no overpass like that on Broadway.
Okay. Now, so this is Amsterdam, which at 110th becomes Central Park West, is that right?
No.
Is that what I'm looking at up ahead?
Frederick Douglass Boulevard becomes Central Park West.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you. See, I might have been raised in the New York metropolitan area. I still don't have my avenues right.
Amsterdam is what 10 turns into.
Is that what
Actually, this has changed since the last time I was there. This used to be 4 lanes. They made it 3 with bike lanes.
Yeah, this is a road diet, right? You can see where the old striping used to be.
Yep.
We had to add our bikey-wikey lanes.
I may need to take another trip up here and re-snap this sometime.
Yeah, this looks pretty recent.
Yeah.
I'll have you know, you may not have heard this, although again, you may have heard this. The Deputy Commissioner of Transportation Planning for New York City DOT is a person that I do not like personally and I do not like professionally. And a lot of this stuff, he's careful to keep his name out of the news, but a lot of this stuff has his fingerprints all over it. And his name is Michael Replogle, and I do not like Mr. Replogle at all. And I had thought when he first took the job in New York, he owned a very expensive single-family detached house in Bethesda, Maryland, and he continued to take the Maryland property tax homestead exemption, which is unlawful to take if you are not living in the state. And I thought about ratting him out, but then I was concerned that might cause me difficulty and that might piss my bosses off thoroughly if I did that. But it did cross my mind, I will tell you, and he has since sold the place. But he certainly wanted to preach smart growth and transit for other people, but he didn't necessarily follow those himself. And he worked for Environmental Defense Fund for a long time, and he worked. We had a couple other jobs, all non-motorized transportation, which is sales pitch, and but then he got this job for some reasons that actually baffled me. He got this job in New York City. I realize the politicians probably like the mayor, but I get the impression, like for instance, with those bike lanes in Queens, that people in Queens don't like it at all, and probably don't like what has been done. Now, is that going to cost Blasio when he wants to run for re-election? I can't say that. I think.
Yeah, I think.
But it could mean that whoever succeeds de Blasio reverses it.
That could be. Now, what Replogle, I'm fairly sure he wants to do. If Joe Biden were to be elected, he would want to have a very senior position in the U.S. DOT, and I'm not sure
de Blasio?
I'm sorry.
Who de Blasio would?
Replogle, the guy at New York City, the head planner at New York City DOT.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Would love to try to force the states to do this kind of stuff with the power of the federal government. The only thing is, I don't think he's one to grasp onto too much, and I think he might get his hand bitten pretty quickly if he were to try that. But try.
Yeah.
Right, he was very involved in efforts to sabotage the intercounty connector, which he worked.
Your favorite.
Well, yeah, I mean, he worked on it as a planner, or he was always trying to convince the politicians that, that this is a terrible thing and it shouldn't be built, and they refused to remove from the master plans, and he was involved in the last EIS and he was very much involved in the federal lawsuit against it, but he got blown out of the water there because the judge that tried the case, was having none of it, and the judge rejected everything, all the assertions that he had raised, and they were his assertions, not the lawyers. I mean, the lawyers may have put them in appropriate legalese, but they were all rejected by the court. And he promised that he was going to appeal, but I think one of his lawyers, all of which were pro bono, they're all free lawyers, but I think you sue, if you appeal this to the Court of Appeals in Richmond, which is where appeals from Maryland go, and you lose, then it's very likely that that opinion that they issue will become a binding precedent in all Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals states, which go from Maryland to South Carolina, West Virginia.
When you say Court of Appeals, you're talking Federal Court of Appeals.
Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is based in Richmond, Virginia. Okay,
yeah, that would explain why matter is being appealed to a court in Virginia.
Yeah. And he tried to. He was very involved in that, and when he finally lost, I mean, he didn't have anything to say at that point. I mean, he was. The state threw a bone saying that they would fund the reduction of exhaust from diesel-powered school buses. But the thing about it is that they were planning to do that anyway, so there wasn't anything that they did him any favors. But he was trying to say, well, at least we won a little bit of victory. Well, no, you really didn't. But I said he's up in New York, and a lot of this stuff is definitely Michael Replogel's influence, but he's careful to not get his name in the New York Times or in the New York media. You'll never hear his name on WCBS, for example. I don't think that's necessarily because I think it's because he realized that a lot of what he's doing is unpopular, and that he would probably, people knowing who he is would probably be bad for his long-term, career prospects if Democratic.
That may be.
Well, I want to real quickly just remind everybody that for the last 30 blocks or so, we've been on Broadway, and I'm pretty sure this is Broadway.
This is Broadway, Upper West Side, yeah.
And in about 10 blocks on the right, you'll have Lincoln Center, which is one of my favorite places in the city. And of course has been cordoned off. Nobody's hanging out over there.
Yeah.
So yeah, and again, I want to mention that I've never driven these streets before. So before this week, so this was all it was new territory, and it was also very disorienting to not see anybody out and about.
Yeah. Well, here you got taxis.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is where all the taxis went, I guess.
And you've got someone in the middle lane with their flashers on, which is lovely.
Well, that's typical New York behavior, too. Let's just double and triple park in the middle of Broadway.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that Broadway is the one street that really doesn't respect the Manhattan grid system. It kind of goes its own way. It doesn't worry about where the grid is for the most part.
Yeah, well, in the main part of Manhattan, once you get south of Houston Street, that's a whole other story.
Yeah,
but
Broadway
in the area where there is a grid. What'd you say?
Yeah, Broadway becomes a bit more orderly once you're downtown. But, it does kind of meander its way, like, through the numbered section of the grid.
Right. Broadway is also notable in that it is the only street in Manhattan that does the entire length of the borough. So it starts right near Battery Park, and it goes all the way up to the Broadway Bridge, crossing the Harlem River to the Bronx, and then through the Bronx into Westchester. And as I was saying before, north of the George Washington Bridge, it's US 9, and eventually up in Westchester, it'll change names, but if you follow that, you can take it all the way up to Canada.
Right.
And you can take it all the way to Wiz's house.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, isn't
Or a block or two away.
Yeah.
they went all the way to Albany? Is that not correct?
What
The
about
name-
Albany?
Say that
Be
again?
found in places all the way up as far as Albany.
Broadway or US 9?
No, Albany. The name Broadway.
I don't think so. So once you get further up in Westchester, it eventually changes names to become Albany Post Road, and it has that name for a while.
Because unlike US 1, Boston Post Road, that thing runs, basically from New York, I think all the way into somewhere into Massachusetts. It may not be contiguous all the way, but it you can find things with that name on it all the way up into Massachusetts.
Oh,
Or
okay.
at least
I don't know about Massachusetts. Certainly Westchester and, up into Connecticut. Then in Rhode Island, I believe it's just Post Road without the Boston on it.
I've seen that. Having been to Rhode Island not that long ago, yes, I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Route
US
9
1 is in Rhode Island is an interesting road. I need to head up that way sometime once things are no longer crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, US 9 has a bunch of different names. Certainly up in my neck of the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah, none of which are Broadway.
Yeah.
But you do see a lot of Albany Post Road, you see a lot of Albany Road, you see a lot of Post Road. In Dutchess County, there's a South Road and a North Road section.
Yep.
So, yeah, it does change quite a bit up in the Hudson
Okay.
Valley. Here's Lincoln Center on the right.
Yep. And what's crossing here is Columbus Avenue. I guess we're turning on to Columbus Avenue.
Yeah, we're now on a different street, which is not Broadway.
Yep.
Is this Columbus Avenue? Is that what this is?
Yeah, Columbus Avenue is what 9th Avenue is called when you're north of 59th Street.
Ah, okay.
I did
Yep.
not know that. Interesting.
See, I'm glad that David called in tonight because I don't know what the heck I'm talking about with these avenues. I need somebody to help set me straight.
So on the west side, the numbered avenues only continue as far up as 59th Street. And north of 59th Street, they change names. So 8th Avenue becomes Central Park West, as we've been talking about earlier. 9th Avenue becomes Columbus Avenue. 10th Avenue becomes Amsterdam Avenue. 11th Avenue becomes West End Avenue. And 12th Avenue becomes the Henry Hudson Parkway.
Okay.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. And then there's 6th and 7th, which end at Central Park
Right.
and disappear for the length of the park and then reappear at Central Park North. And they have different names there as well. 6th Avenue becomes Lenox Avenue, and 7th Avenue becomes Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard.
So really, 59th Street is a major dividing line for the designation of avenues.
Correct.
And
Although 59th Street itself isn't, well, actually, it does eventually become Central Park South, so there it's somewhat major. But on the other side of Columbus Circle, it's just some dinky little street, but everything happens to change names when it crosses it.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. 57th Street is the one that's a major crosstown street, where it's two-way with a double yellow line down the middle.
Yeah, and it goes all the way across the island, yeah.
Yep.
Is that
Starts at 9A slash 12th Avenue slash the West Side Highway and goes all the way to a dead end by the FDR Drive, and there's also an entrance to the Queensboro Bridge from there.
does 57th or 59th, somewhere in that area, have political significance in terms of, was that where the city once ended? Is that kind of why explain why the name change happened there? Do you know that?
If it is, I don't know. But what is significant? Now you're on Riverside Drive.
Riverside Drive.
Yep. 59th Street becomes Central Park South at Columbus Circle, and it's the southern boundary of Central Park, so it kind of divides Midtown from Uptown.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was wondering if that was something that was pre-planned, or if it just kind of happened to work out that way.
Probably because it's where the park is, would be my guess.
Yeah, so whenever they laid out Central Park, they kind of decided at that point to make 59th Street the dividing line.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
What's interesting, that in Baltimore you have North Avenue, which at one time did define the northern edge of the city of Baltimore. It obviously doesn't now, but it did at one time. And in D.C. you had Florida Avenue, which similarly, even though it's not a straight, avenues in D.C. are supposed to be run on diagonals, and Florida Avenue is a bizarre affair, just like the state that it's named for. But it also, at one time, the city of Washington ended at Florida Avenue. North of Florida Avenue was Washington County. It was still federally controlled. It was in the District of Columbia, and it wasn't the same as Washington County, Maryland, out in the western part of the state, but there was that was what Florida Avenue did, and that's why I was curious if there was an analog to that with 57th or 59th, somewhere in there, that maybe at one point that was the demarcation line where the city came to an end. That's
very interesting. The thing that's probably worth knowing about New York that not everyone watching may know is that New York City was not always all 5 boroughs. It was originally just Manhattan, and Brooklyn was a separate city, and Queens, the Bronx, and Staten Island were suburban counties at that time. So the boroughs of New York City, each borough is a separate county, and they have county names that for 3 of the 5 are different from the borough names. The county name for the borough of Manhattan is New York County. And the reason why that's the case is because that used to be all of New York City.
I guess the ones that Richmond County, I'm not sure where they got that from for Staten Island. And
the original, I think the original name of the borough was the borough of Richmond, and at some point along the way they switched to the borough of Staten Island.
Okay.
Well, if I recall, if I'm not mistaken, the name Richmond is British and the name Staten Island is Dutch. So that may have something to do with it.
Yeah, but I remember reading somewhere that it used to be known as Richmond.
Yeah. And also, if you go to Staten Island, there's Richmond Terrace, Richmond Avenue, Richmond Road, and Richmond Hill Road. And what's now called Victory Boulevard was renamed in honor of World War I, and it was originally called Richmond Turnpike. And what's now the Korean War Veterans Parkway was originally the Richmond Parkway. Okay. So you see the name Richmond all over the place if you go driving around Staten Island.
And the funny thing, Richmond in Virginia is, of course, you have the city of Richmond in the state capital, but to confuse foreign spies from the north, there's also a Richmond County, which is about 70 miles away from the city of Richmond. It has nothing whatsoever in common with the city of Richmond.
Yeah. Also, I should give a little note. That building we just passed in the median there, that's Grant's tomb, which is where the president and Civil War general Ulysses S. Grant is buried. And you can go visit it and see his casket and his wife's casket.
Wow.
Yeah, I've known about that for many, many years, but I've never actually been inside to visit.
I used to live within walking distance from it, so I could go visit it pretty easily.
Yeah.
Supposedly, after he retired, is when he was done being president, got stopped for speeding by the NYPD on one of the avenues and was actually issued a citation or a summons by the New York City Police for speeding. Yeah, Grant himself. He was out operating a horse-drawn carriage, and he was speeding. He was issued a ticket for speeding.
That is incredible to hear about someone being issued a speeding ticket with a horse. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Well, it is. If you Google it, you could probably find it. I remember it. I think it might have been actually from a history class where we were studying President Grant. Because that was obviously the last major public office he held. He was president, but
right.
That supposedly when he died relatively young. He got cancer, I think, of the tongue or something from smoking,
right.
perhaps. But he
smoking that.
He retired,
especially.
Yeah.
He retired in New York City, and like I said, supposedly at NYPD. Now, I don't think they had radar sets back then, so I'm not sure how the cop measured speed, but supposedly the cop did, and I think they actually had to take him to the police station to give him a ticket. They couldn't just, give him a ticket by the side of the street. They actually had to take him, I guess, in theory, under arrest to the police station, and then he got a ticket for because apparently the cop realized that he was dealing with former President Grant. He wasn't going to give him a ticket, and the Grant ordered him, says, "No, officer, you do your duty." And so supposedly, and again, I'd be sure
because it would have been a scandal if he didn't.
I think maybe Grant understood that. I mean, that's my guess anyway.
Yeah, I would think so.
Washington Bridge, which I think maybe my favorite New York metropolitan area bridge is the GWB. I love those suspension towers on that bridge.
Yeah.
The George is an awesome bridge. The thing is, when you're coming from Long Island, it can be a nightmare to get to.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because of that thing called the Cross Bronx.
Absolutely.
Although actually, the last time I was going up that way, I took the Harlem River Drive, and it actually worked pretty well. And that was, I think, like mid-morning that I left, something like that.
Up past the apartments is that run that are over 95 on Manhattan, or no?
Yeah, that's Manhattan. So if you come in from the Harlem River Drive, you would do that. It's only if you're coming in from the Henry Hudson Parkway that you would go, or I guess from Broadway also, you'd go directly onto the bridge.
Are we gonna actually drive by the apartments on this street as we get there? That's, I guess, what I'm asking. Does this street take past the apartments?
No, what we have up ahead here is Columbia Medical Center, and Riverside Drive peters out in a few blocks and merges you onto the Henry Hudson northbound.
Yep.
Okay.
This is a good place to stop this video because you mentioned under the apartments, right?
Yeah.
Where is it here? Here it is.
Yeah, nice to have two devices here. The laptop as you're running your videos, and then the tablet for the Skype call.
Yeah, because we tried it a different way the first time and it went to hell. So we figured we'd better just split everything out onto two devices. It's just a lot easier that way. So you mentioned, I did mention something on my roadwaywiz page this morning in a post that all of the major agencies around the city have gone to cashless tolling due to the outbreak. So you're actually getting a sneak peek at cashless tolling that will be implemented on the GWB in a couple of years anyway.
Good.
Yeah. So they've switched over all the electronic signs to reflect that.
Okay.
And there's usually not much of a delay on the inbound side at afternoon rush. I mean, usually there's a little bit of a wait, but it's not horrible. But it's also never this light either.
No, I could tell even now, and this is usually, the polls kind of act a little bit as a ramp meter, but even so, I mean, if you're, especially I've come through, I usually am on the upper deck like this, and, it usually speeds up here, and then when you get over to the apartment, things slow down. That's been my somewhat experience. lanes that
You've also got traffic merging in from Manhattan there, from the Henry Hudson Parkway, from Broadway, so
right.
it's understandable.
Yeah, you've got a zillion lanes trying to merge onto the GW at that point.
Yep.
Yeah.
The question about lower levels of the GW and the Verrazano, those decks are still open unless there's construction that's shutting them down. They do keep both levels open even during this lighter traffic period. I think I know they're looking into doing full shutdowns of the Verrazano's lower level as that project gets underway, but that's a construction-related closure that they might implement during off-peak hours and on weekends. That's not to do with COVID-19.
What are they doing on the Verrazano?
I understand it's a replacement of the lower level.
Oh, wow.
It's because they did the upper level a few years ago.
Right.
So now they're doing the lower level.
That we're driven through at this speed ever. Never.
Yeah, right? This is a rarity.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's always, you got to just kind of, take your, you got to be very careful through here and drive very defensively and very slowly. And,
yeah. Well, usually you don't have to worry about driving defensively because you're going 5 miles an hour anyway.
Point. I mean, I remember one time, it wasn't that long ago, there was somebody had abandoned a tractor trailer in the I-95 northbound side at the Hamilton Bridge, and so what was normally bad got much worse because of that. And the guy just got there. I don't know what the driver did, but he wasn't around, and the thing about it is, if it was close to home, I would have reported it to the appropriate law enforcement agency. But in the case of New York, I'm making sure if that's Port Authority territory, if it's NYPD, or who you would let know about that. I wouldn't even know.
Well, you probably would go through NYPD.
Yeah.
If it's under the apartments.
It was after the apartments. It was actually out on the Hamilton Bridge.
Oh, yeah. So you're firmly.
Yeah, that would probably be NYPD.
Yeah, you'd firmly be in New York at that point.
It's definitely not Port Authority.
The part of 95 under the apartments, apparently that's still Port Authority territory, and maybe until you come past the apartments and you emerge from under the apartments, and then there's where the change in maintenance happens, I think.
Yeah, that could be.
So
whether it would be NYPD or whether it would be I don't know, maybe it would be the state police on the highway there. I don't know.
Yeah.
The only part of New York City's system that is where the state police are natively involved is the New England Thruway part that's in the Bronx. That is, they are the primary law enforcement agency there, but I thought the rest of it would be New York City police. But
that may very well be. I know on Long Island, the parkways get patrolled by the state police.
Okay, bye-bye. I'm going to come upstairs a little while. So, thank you. Have a good evening. I was talking to
you're signing off?
Well, no, I need to go up and spend some time with him, but okay. She's done for the day. She's had a long day, and I should go up and see how he's doing. And he's had some issues this weekend that he hasn't normally suffered from. Oh, he's sleeping? Okay, good. Well, I'll stay down here for a little while then. If he's asleep, I don't want to wake him up.
Yeah, he was so mad I wake him up.
No, I know he doesn't like that. He doesn't like to be woken up. So, so actually, I'll stay with you guys for a little while longer because what'll happen is if I hear him moving around from where I am, because I'm downstairs, he's upstairs. But if I hear him moving around, then I'll need to put the tablet down and go and see how he's doing and so forth. I think I need to take him to the doctor. So I'll leave. I don't need to worry you guys about that anymore. I think are we going to get on the Tri-Borough here?
No, I was just going to say that we're heading down the east side of Manhattan. So we just traversed Harlem River Drive, which now transitions into the FDR Drive.
Right.
Yep.
Do they have any plans to rebuild the FDR so that it doesn't have the remarkably low posted weight limits, or is that just like is there so much traffic that they can't do that? Do you guys have any feeling for that?
I'm not aware of any plans to rebuild it. You'd seen there was some construction back there. That was about building a direct connection between what's officially now known as the RFK Bridge, but basically everyone still calls it the Triborough, and the Harlem River Drive heading north, because right now you have to go onto the local streets to make that connection, which is, let's face it, pretty crappy.
It's a New York version of Breezewood, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, you could say that. Well, it's not quite as bad as Breezewood, because at least it's not to to follow a single interstate. It's to transfer between an interstate and a parkway, but it's a little bit Breezewood-like.
Right, I got you. I mean, there was also a strange situation that, David, you probably know, on 278, where the trucks had to use the frontage roads.
That was the case until very recently.
Or it was in Brooklyn. The trucks, basically, because the main roadway was Grand Central Parkway, and trucks were not allowed. And they
did this, I think they called it micro-milling, where they lowered the roadway slightly so that the trucks could fit under that overpass. And that's the end of truck Interstate 278.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It may still be signed as truck Interstate 278.
It still is.
But
yeah.
Yeah, but on 278 itself, the signage now tells you trucks use Grand Central Parkway.
Okay.
Yeah. So you don't have to take the Astoria Boulevard exit and go on the service road for a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is my favorite drives in New York City, right? I really like this. FDR Drive has got nice scenery. You have the water on the on the east side, and you have the buildings, assortment of interesting buildings for the most part on the right. Not here, but in general, this is a very nice ride for New York City right here.
Yeah.
FDR Drive is very nice. The trick is just finding a time to do it when there isn't bad traffic.
Yeah, like Friday afternoon.
That's right.
This is a Friday afternoon, which is hard to believe,
unbelievable.
But yeah.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
That is just, that's quite remarkable.
Yeah.
Well, is FDR Drive officially part of the New York City Parkway network, or is it just a street that doesn't allow trucks?
No, it's a parkway. It's got a reference route number assigned to it as a parkway.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yep. And then you'll see that bridge on the left there. That's the Queensboro Bridge, which, as the sign tells you, is New York 25.
Right.
So 25 begins here, and it goes all the way out to Orient Point at the end of Long Island.
Wow.
So it's about 105 miles long.
Well, people that haven't been there don't realize just how long Long Island is. I mean, it's a long way out to the eastern tip, either North Fork or the South Fork. It's a long ways out.
And that's the North Fork, which is the one that's closer. New York 27, which goes out to the end of the South Fork at Montauk, that's 120 miles long.
Okay, all right. Now, New York 27 doesn't go into New York City anymore, is that right? It was truncated in the city, or is it just not?
It doesn't go into Manhattan. It goes through Queens and Brooklyn.
It does, okay. Didn't it at one point come across the East River into Manhattan, too?
There was a time when it did, yes. It went over the Manhattan Bridge and then across Canal Street to the Holland Tunnel. And supposedly, I had seen something written somewhere that supposedly New Jersey 27 used to extend up to the Holland Tunnel and follow what's now 139.
Okay.
So the two of them supposedly did connect at one point.
Wow.
Wow.
So there was a time when you could follow it from Princeton to Montauk. So yeah, as far as how long Long Island is, I live in Mineola, which is Long Island proper. It's beyond the city line. It's probably about 5 miles past the city line, something like that. And if I go out to Montauk from where I am, it's about 2 hours and 15 minutes.
I believe that.
Just to give you an idea. It's Parkway and Expressway until you get out to Shinnecock at the beginning of the South Fork, and then there is no more Expressway, and 27 is, well, there's a little while where it's a 4-lane surface road, and then it's a 2-lane surface road, basically all the way out to the end, Montauk Highway.
Wow.
So there was supposed to be, Sunrise Highway, which is 27 further west before the expressway ends, it's a divided highway surface road in Nassau County and the very beginning of Suffolk County. And then once you get probably about 5 miles beyond the Nassau-Suffolk County line, it becomes an expressway, and it stays an expressway all the way out to Shinnecock. And there was supposed to be an extension of Sunrise Highway out toward very close to the end. It wasn't going to be quite to Montauk. It was going to be Amagansett, which is the major town before Montauk. Mm-hmm. And it would have bypassed the areas in the Hamptons that tend to get congested. So it would have been nice if they had built that, but they haven't. And there's no indication that it would happen anytime soon. A lot of NIMBYism out there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So
we're now on the Lower East Side on the FDR Drive, and we're about to round the corner to my favorite part of the drive when you get to see the approach to the financial district and the Brooklyn and Manhattan bridges on the left.
Yep. So little historical note about Lower East Side. Most Jewish New Yorkers have grandparents or great-grandparents who used to live there in little tenement apartments that would not comply with today's maximum occupancy laws. But back then, that's what there was. And when they got off the ships from Ellis Island, that was where they could afford to live. So that was where they lived until they started to make their way up the economic ladder.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So, little immigration history there.
Yeah. Well, we know there's plenty of that in the city, right?
Yep. And there are other neighborhoods downtown here. There's Chinatown, there's Little Italy, which also have immigrant histories to them, that there were particular immigrant groups that settled in those neighborhoods when they came here.
Yeah.
So, the Brooklyn Bridge, it's 2 exit-only lanes to the Brooklyn Bridge. I think that's new now.
The ramp, I believe, was 2 lanes. It's just that they restriped the FDR to 2 lanes exit only, right?
I believe the last time that I was through here, it was only 1 lane that was exit only.
Yeah, that might be true. I'd have to go back and look.
But, and this year, it looks like it's still button copy.
Yeah, there's still some old stuff hanging on.
I'm gonna need to go drive this sometime.
Well, if you want to drive it, now's the time to do it.
Well, if you do it on a weekend, it's not a problem.
No, yeah, you can sneak some stuff in on Saturday and Sunday, but
yeah,
even more so now.
Oh yeah.
Here's the Battery Park underpass, and as we loop around Battery Park, we'll come out the other side on West Street.
Yeah, so this is basically a tunnel under Battery Park at the end of the FDR Drive. And as you said, West Street. West Street is what the West Side Highway is called in Lower Manhattan. It's also New York 9A.
Right, 9A
The only state route that does any significant distance in Manhattan.
Mm.
Yeah, the World Trade Center is right in front of us.
Yup. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
There's the ramp to the Hugh L. Carey Tunnel, which most people still call the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel.
Yeah, no one knows what UL Carey Tunnel is. Don't call it that. It's the battery. Everyone still calls it the Battery Tunnel.
Yeah.
So. But the signs all say UL Carey Tunnel to totally confuse people, considering that there isn't even a route number to identify it. So it's really a great thing to rename.
Yeah. I think we'll do one more video before we wrap this up tonight. Unless you guys want to keep going for a while still. I mean, I don't really care one way or the other. But
Actually, homework I should also do on my. I'm actually analyzing the. I've analyzed vehicle probe data for down here, and of course, almost everything is running free flow, even in the middle of rush hour now, including the so you can. But my boss asked me to look at the automatic traffic recorder counts to see how much they've declined, and interestingly, getting them from Virginia was easy. They actually set up a rudimentary website because they don't only publish ATR data except on an annual basis, but they made an exception. And at DC, actually, the woman I deal with in DC just sent me this gigantic file of traffic count, and I need to analyze that. And that file is so big, David, you'll appreciate this, that you cannot deal with this file in Excel. It's just too damn big, and that also means you can't deal with it in R either. This is so you have to go back to my always good standby, which is SAS, which allows arbitrarily large data sets. There's no, as long as it has the working space that it needs to do its thing, you can have you can have as big of a data set as you like with SAS. It won't complain or anything like that. It'll just keep on going. But so I need to do some work on that. It's not difficult. This is pretty easy work, but I need to do some work on that to try to get that. And then tomorrow kind of trying to diplomatically get my contacts at Maryland to give me the same data. They haven't been very cooperative so far, but maybe they'll change on that. So.
Yeah. So for anyone listening who's wondering, like, why is Patrick saying that a file that's too big to load in Excel is something that I would appreciate? So I work for a company called MongoDB. That's a database company, and I work on a product called Atlas Data Lake where the purpose of it is to be able to query data that's so big that it's not even economical to put it in a database, much less in an Excel spreadsheet. So, yeah, I spend a lot of my time thinking about very large sets of data.
They pay you the big bucks for that.
What did you say?
They pay you the big bucks for that.
Yup.
Is this Throg's Neck here?
Whitestone.
This is the Whitestone Bridge.
Oh, okay, I see now. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
Yep. We're going for a drive on I-678 for a few minutes.
So the Throg's Neck is 295. It's one bridge over to the left, to the east.
Yeah, and it's literally right next door.
Yeah.
Right.
So these two bridges are the main route between Long Island and points to the north and east. So as someone who grew up on Long Island, a lot of Long Islanders take summer vacations up to places in New England, like Boston or Cape Cod, places like that. And those trips would generally begin with a ride over the Throg's Neck Bridge or sometimes the Whitestone Bridge.
most people would make the connection to Long Island via the Cross Island Parkway, which splits off at this point.
Yeah, so as you said, there's a split here. 678, the Whitestone Expressway, is going to go a little bit to the west, and the Cross Island Parkway will veer a little bit to the east and then head south, right along the border between Queens and Nassau County. So if you were going out to Long Island proper, you generally get off that exit for the Cross Island Parkway and take that to either the LIE, the northern state, or the southern state. Unless you come from where I come from, in which case you take it to Northern Boulevard and just take the local streets because you're close enough in that it's not worth the extra mileage to go up and down to the expressway in order to go three exits on it. Yeah, I guess 2 exits. Yeah. Because the Cross Island is exit 31, and coming from the west to go to Port Washington, where I grew up, you would get off exit 33 for Community Drive, take that up to Northern Boulevard, and then hook into Plandom Road, which is kind of the back way into town.
Yeah. So the Whitestone Expressway ends here, and for those of you who are Seinfeld fanatics, you might have been led to believe over the years that no one has ever beaten the Van Wyck. Just watch me, though. I'll show you how it's done.
Yeah. So this is a name change here from the Whitestone to the Van Wyck. That ramp going off to the right there, that was supposed to be, there is a little bit, it's like an expressway, but it's a long ramp that goes from here to the Grand Central Parkway. That was supposed to be the beginning of something called the Astoria Expressway that would roughly follow the corridor of Astoria Boulevard for a direct route to the Triborough Bridge.
Yeah.
Or technically the RFK Bridge now, but I will continue calling it Triborough when I'm talking.
Yeah, the Astoria Expressway was supposed to be basically a truck route alternative to the Grand Central, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it also would have been slightly more direct in terms of, mileage, that it would follow the straight line between 2 points rather than a curve.
Yeah.
So.
You see, David, there's still some old signs here and there.
Yep.
I mean, they replaced most of the stuff, but there's still a couple of odd ones here and there.
Yeah. There's what I like to call the Great Sign Replacement of 2013, which consisted of, the old signs, they used to be made of a material where they needed lighting on the sign structure to be readily visible at night. And then around 2012, they came out with a new material that's reflective enough that you can see it well from just the headlights, so they don't need that lighting anymore. So in 2013, they did this massive replacement where basically every expressway or parkway sign anywhere on Long Island got replaced over the course of a year.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
and that was just a DOT Region 10 thing? Like, they didn't apply that to other parts of the state?
I think there were similar things that went on in other areas. There were sign replacements in certain places in New York City, some more so than others. But what happened in Nassau and Suffolk counties, basically anything on, certainly anything that was of any significant age on a parkway or expressway got replaced. And what did you say?
Speaking of getting replaced, this flyover here was recently completed.
Yeah,
The
this
main line
looks
is-
very different since the last time I was through here.
Yeah, the main line is now 3 lanes across instead of 2. And there's a much more orderly merge here with this 2-lane ramp on the left, which is coming from the Grand Central eastbound.
Yep, I'm going to have to go through here and reclinch this sometime, maybe the next time I'm heading out to New Jersey or something.
Yeah, this is actually pretty nice. Like, the construction on the Van Wyck is basically done. There is still a lot of road work related to the Kew Gardens Phase 4 project on the Grand Central main line and the connecting ramps to the Jackie Robinson. But construction on this aspect of that project is now complete.
Yeah. Actually, maybe sometime, while things are so light in traffic, maybe sometime I just go for a drive after work and clinch this.
Well, you're close enough, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you could theoretically do it after work with how light it is.
Yeah, and it's only going to be getting to be more daylight, so yeah.
So here's the air train viaduct, which comes in from the Jamaica station. It starts
Yep.
there and runs as an elevated structure in the median all the way down to JFK.
Yeah, I go across this section of the Van Wyck on the train every day as part of my commute.
Yeah, because the LIRR crossed over right behind us a short
Yep,
distance ago.
right before the air train comes in.
Yep. Now there's a project that's in the works to add a lane to this, I think. Do you know anything
Well,
about that?
I don't think any work has started on it, but it is planned.
Do you know more of the specifics of it?
I don't know that much in detail, but it's going to be 4 lanes. I think the fourth is going to be an HOV lane.
Oh, they are going to go with HOV?
Yeah, and it's going to be between the airport and the Kew Gardens interchange that it's going to be 4 lanes. And there's a couple of actually I think it's one place where you have an entrance and an exit that are very close. So what they're going to do is they're going to take 2 exits that are right next to each other and combine them so they get rid of that.
Okay.
Which is supposed to make it safer.
All right. Well, plus you got the service road right there anyway. So
Right.
Probably...
So I think it's just going to be they're going to force people to stay on the service road for 1 exit.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the official southern terminus of I-678? It's not here.
It's at the airport somewhere.
It's in the airport somewhere, right?
Yeah.
I thought that it might be, and I'll point out this tunnel when we pass it, but I thought it was at the end of one of the runway tunnels. Or the taxiway tunnel, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely within the airport complex. It is not at this interchange.
Despite the fact that there's a sign on, I think it's 878, that makes it look like going south is not 678.
Right, yeah. 878 East, it just says there's no I-678 shield for that.
Right, only for the northbound direction.
Yep. Well, folks, welcome to JFK Airport, and I guarantee you've never seen it this quiet.
Right.
Yeah. The 878 is an interesting road.
Yeah, that's for sure.
One of the more perplexing ones if you just look at it on a map.
Well, is I-878 the only interstate that is signed for a single direction? Or not signed, but it exists for a single direction.
Yeah, it's not signed as an interstate at all.
No, but it exists for a short distance, yeah.
But it's consistently signed as a state route.
That's right, yeah.
So, yeah.
Again,
And it actually does exist in both directions, but only the eastbound direction actually has numbered exits.
I guess if you're leaving the airport, you're supposed to know where you're going. You don't need numbered exits.
Yeah.
You're not even necessarily leaving the airport on there. It's more that you're getting on it from local streets in Queens and using it to make a connection to 678 or 678 or the Belt Parkway or Conduit Avenue.
And by the way, have you guys ever seen the access roads to Kennedy this empty?
No. No.
Well, no one's flying these days.
There's plenty of room there, but there's no takers.
No.
Which is probably a good thing.
This was just amazing to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just how empty it is, you mean?
Yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Well, as we come to the end of this video, I think we're gonna come to the end of this live stream because I gotta get ready for work tomorrow myself.
All right. Well, thank you.
But,
this was really good. Thank you for. I finally made it to participate, and this was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Glad you could make it.
Yeah, thanks for organizing.
I do want to give you guys a quick reminder before we sign off here, and as we arrive at the JetBlue terminal with no passengers. The weekday dashcam live drive will resume tomorrow. It is tentatively scheduled to start at 3:30. That is a little bit of a time change from what we've been doing. It might take a little bit of time to get into a rhythm as far as what the exact start time will be, but I'm going to go with 3:30 for now, and we'll see what happens. My commute is going to be much different now. It's not going to involve the city. So you're going to get to see some new areas starting on Monday. So I'm looking forward to you guys being able to see that. I can't even tell you where I'm going to start from because of the nature of this job I'm going to. It might vary from day to day. So you'll have to tune in at the start and you'll have to figure out where you are.
Is this a firm that you've been working for a while now, and they have assigned you to a thruway authority contract? Is that right?
This is a major contract upstate. That's what I will put out there on this stream.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, anyway,
that sounds cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's very good. I will say that.
Good.
So I really want to thank you guys, David, Pat. You guys were awesome.
David,
thank you guys for tuning in the live chat. Great job as always. We could not have done it without you. I look forward to seeing some of you in the live chat again tomorrow and all next week and next weekend and however long this takes to pass.
All right.
I will be here every day for you guys. So
thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Have a great night, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
All right, keep up the good work.
I will do my best. Cheers.
Great.